You love spending a day on the trails, but what gear should you take for a day hike? Or should you even worry about taking gear for just a day hike? What works best for you may be different than what works best for me, but let me show you the 12 things that I put in my day pack for almost every hike and tell you why I bring those things. Also, stick around to the end where I'll show you a few things that I throw in depending on the conditions, including when I take my two huskies, Luna and Kaya. You may be thinking, it's just a day hike. I don't need to take a lot of gear. I've done this trail before, or it's short, or it's going to be a busy trail. If I need something, there'll be other people there. For me personally, I prefer to be a little over-prepared, and I figure as long as I take these things, I probably won't need them. But it's the one time I leave them home that I'll end up needing it or come across somebody else on the trails that does. At the end, I'll show you how much all of these things weigh in my Osprey Talon 33. I love that pack, by the way. If you want to see a full breakdown of it, I'll put a link to that video here. First up is navigation. You need to know where you're going. Now, there are different things that you can use. For me, I typically use my cell phone, the AllTrails app. I paid extra for the Pro membership so I can download maps and even print off paper maps if I want to. It's easy to use, $30 for a year. For me, well worth it. However, I typically take a backup paper map and compass. You may prefer a paper map and compass, you may prefer a cell phone or some other type of navigation, but you should definitely have some way to know where you're going, even if you think you know the area well. As a side note, don't just throw a paper map in your pack unless you actually know how to use a map and compass. Since I mentioned my cell phone and that it's my main source of navigation, I also always take a power bank. If it's a short day hike, it's typically something like this, but if it's a full day hike or a backpacking trip, I will take this big boy that can give my phone several charges as well as other gear. You may or may not need a power bank, but as I said, since my cell phone is my main source of navigation and I like taking videos and other things, I always take a power bank. After knowing where you're going and making sure that your phone doesn't run out of juice if that's your main source of navigation, you need to make sure that you have the energy to get there. Whatever snacks work for you, definitely throw some in. When I'm planning a hike, I will often think to myself, if this were to take me twice as long as I think, how much food would I want to take? That means that I often have an RX bar or a Fig bar in my pack for several trips before it actually gets used, but they survive just fine. Always better to have more calories than you think that you'll need. Potentially more important than food is water. You always want to make sure that you have more than enough water. Similar to my approach to calories, my rule of thumb with water is how much water do I think I'll need? I'm going to take twice that much. The last thing you want is to run out of water. I recently went on a hike with my two huskies up to Grandeur Peak. I'll put a link to that video up here. I took 3 liters of water thinking that would be more than enough, and we drank all of it. So I'm glad that I took more than I thought that I would need. If it's an all-day excursion, it's also a good idea to bring a filtration device. I really like this Katadyn Be-Free. I also always take some water treatment pills as part of my first aid kit. Speaking of first aid kit, this is something that never comes out of my day pack, so I don't forget it. I was just on a long hike this weekend where I used several items out of this exact kit. I put it together myself. It weighs only 6 ounces and cost me less than $10. I'll put a link to the video where I put together this kit right up here. It also has a few what I'll call bonus items that aren't in your typical first aid kit that I think are important to bring. We'll get to those in a minute. Another important item is a Mylar rescue blanket. I personally have never had to use one of these. I hope that I don't, but I always keep one in my day pack just in case. It could literally save my life. And a knife or multi-tool. I really like this Gerber dime knife. It's small, light, and easy to keep in my day pack, and also has everything that I think I would need. Pliers, scissors, a blade, tweezers for splinters. For me, it's perfect. And a light. Now, to say that I throw a separate light into my day pack every time wouldn't be accurate. If it's just a morning hike, very short, I will know that I can rely on the flashlight in my cell phone if I need to. And I always take a power bank for extra power. But if my hike's taking me into the afternoon or definitely into the evening, I will always put in a separate light. I typically prefer a headlamp so I can be hands-free, but you can use whatever works best for you. Always take some light if there's even a chance that you'll be hiking close to the evening. Next up, extra layers. This will obviously be different depending on what the season is and the current conditions, but I will always take extra layers with me in case things cool down. As we all know, weather can change on the trails very quickly. I like to look and see what the low will be at night and take enough layers to make sure I could stay warm in that temperature. Along with extra layers is a buff. This makes a really big difference if it's just a little cool on the trails and you keep it around your neck, but I have used it for so many different things. On the hike I just did this weekend, I used it to dry off my feet after wading through some water in the Narrows so I could put my shoes back on. I've used it to wipe off my face. I've used it as a mask if it's really windy. So many different uses for a buff, so I always keep one in my day pack. I know I've mentioned this a few times, since my cell phone is my main source of navigation, I always take it. But even if my cell phone weren't my primary source of navigation, I would still always take it in case of emergencies, to use as a flashlight, or of course to take pictures of my trail time. And I saved the toilet talk for last. Always take whatever you need to do your business. Nice light shovel and some toilet paper. You don't want to be caught in the wild without some of this just in case you need to go. Take whatever you need. Leave no trace, people. Those are the 12 items in my day pack. I know I mentioned a few bonus items from my first aid kit. One of them is anti-chafe cream. This thing is way too big to take on a day hike, so what I actually did for my first aid kit is got a contact case, cut it in half, and filled one half with squirrel's nut butter. This could really save an uncomfortable hike from turning into a disaster. The other bonus items in my first aid kit that aren't in a typical first aid kit are, as I mentioned, water treatment pills and a gallon Ziploc bag so that I have something to treat the water in, and some sunblock. I never remember this unless I just leave it in my first aid kit, so that's where I keep it. Now for items I might take, depending on different conditions. First up, a rain jacket. I don't like lugging this around all the time, but if there's even a chance of rain, or if I'm going to a region that is prone to rain, I'll throw this in. Another one is my puffy coat. It's nice and warm, packs up really small, and fills that extra space in my day pack, so I actually really like having this in, even if I don't think I'll need it. The third item I'll put in, depending on conditions, is my micro spikes. I keep them in this nice bag so they don't tear up other things within my pack. Depending on where your adventures take you, there could be snow on your route year-round, so it's good to check conditions and throw the micro spikes in case you might be crossing some snow during your hike. And what I throw in if I'm taking the dogs. I always take their leashes. My dogs hike on leash. Even if you typically use off-leash trails and your dogs hike off-leash, I still recommend taking a leash just in case you encounter a situation where you may need it. We mentioned calories and water for us, but we also need to make sure that our four-legged friends also have those same things. I like this Trail Runner bowl from Roughwear. It's really small and holds plenty of water. Both of my huskies can drink out of it at the same time. And if you're bringing your dogs, take lots of extra water. I know mine drink a lot of water. And of course, calories for your dogs. I really like air-dried food. It's light and my dogs love it. Of course, you should take some poop bags. Even if you don't think your dogs will poop on the trail, please always take some poop bags. Nobody wants to see dog poop on the trail. Now, as I said at the beginning, I've put all of those items in my Osprey Talon 33 and we'll see how much it weighs, including all of the items I may take depending on conditions. Looks like it's just over 8 pounds, but again, that includes my puffy coat, rain jacket, that humongous power bank, everything that I talked about. To me, 8 pounds is a reasonable weight to make sure that I feel prepared for everything that I might encounter. That is what I take with me on my day hikes. As I said at the beginning, what works best for you is probably different than what works best for me. So I would love to know what you take on your day hikes. Let me know in the comments if there's something that you like to take that I didn't mention. And remember, life is better with some dirt in it.